Saturday mornings were supposed to be peaceful, the kind of quiet suburban ritual where the biggest decision was choosing between brand-name cereal or the store brand. But for Julian Hayes, what started as a simple grocery run would become a moment that exposed the dangerous intersection of prejudice, power, and assumptions that can shatter lives in an instant. Julian stood in the cereal aisle, weighing his options between Raisin Bran and Honey Nut Cheerios, when a voice shattered the morning calm like breaking glass. "Hands where I can see them! Now!" The command came from behind him, sharp and unforgiving. Julian's blood ran cold as he turned to see a young police officer, weapon drawn, eyes blazing with misplaced authority. Officer Kyle Becker was everything dangerous about unchecked power wrapped in a badge. Young, aggressive, and clearly operating on assumptions rather than facts. To him, Julian wasn't a man peacefully shopping for breakfast. He was a threat that needed to be neutralized. The color of Julian's skin had apparently written a story in Becker's mind, one that justified drawing a weapon in a grocery store without cause, without question, without humanity. "Officer, there's been a mistake," Julian said, his voice steady despite the rage building inside him. But Becker wasn't interested in dialogue. He was interested in dominance, in proving something to himself and anyone watching. What he didn't realize was that he had just made the most catastrophic error of his career. Julian Hayes wasn't just another Saturday morning shopper. He was a decorated FBI special agent with over 2 decades of experience hunting down real criminals, dismantling dangerous organizations, and facing genuine threats that would make most people's nightmares seem tame. He had grown up in this very town, fought against every barrier society had thrown in his path, and earned his way to the highest levels of law enforcement through sheer determination and excellence. The irony was almost too bitter to swallow. Here was a man who had dedicated his life to upholding justice, being treated like a criminal by someone who wore the same oath on his chest. Becker's interrogation grew more aggressive by the second, fueled by baseless suspicion and unchecked bias. "You look like you don't belong here," he sneered, as if Julian's presence in his own neighborhood was somehow criminal. "I live here. I'm buying groceries," Julian responded, each word measured and controlled. When he rightfully refused to provide identification without probable cause, a constitutional right that apparently meant nothing to Becker, the situation spiraled toward disaster. The young officer's hand moved back to his weapon, his voice rising with panic and misplaced authority. But Julian had one advantage that Becker couldn't see coming. Not his training, not his badge, but something much simpler: the truth, and the connections that come with a lifetime of service and respect. "I suggest you call your superior," Julian said, his voice cutting through the tension like a blade. Becker's laugh was hollow, mocking. "What? You think you know the chief or something?" Julian's response was devastating in its simplicity. "I do, Frank Donovan, your chief, my friend." He pulled out his phone with deliberate calm, dialed a number he knew by heart, and put it on speaker for everyone to hear. When Chief Donovan's familiar voice came through the phone, Julian kept it simple and direct. "Frank, I'm at the grocery store. One of your officers just pulled a gun on me for shopping." The silence that followed was deafening, pregnant with the weight of what was about to unfold. Then came Donovan's voice, filled with a fury that could melt steel. "Don't move, I'm on my way." The color drained from Becker's face like water from a broken dam. In that moment, watching his world collapse in real time, he finally understood the magnitude of his mistake. This wasn't just about wrongfully targeting an innocent man. He had threatened someone whose single phone call could end careers, whose word carried the weight of decades of exemplary service. Chief Donovan's arrival was like a hurricane making landfall. Still in civilian clothes, but unmistakably in command, he surveyed the scene with the sharp eyes of someone who had seen too much injustice to tolerate another second of it. His gaze moved from Julian to Becker, who still stood frozen with his weapon drawn like a statue of his own incompetence. "What are you doing?" Why is your gun drawn? Donovan's voice carried the weight of authority and the heat of personal betrayal. Julian remained silent, knowing that sometimes the most powerful statement is the one you don't make. The evidence spoke for itself. Then came the moment that would be seared into Becker's memory forever. That's FBI Special Agent Julian Hayes, my best friend. The words hit the grocery store like a thunderclap, shifting the very foundation of everything Becker thought he knew. The floor might as well have opened up and swallowed him whole. There was no hesitation, no discussion, no second chances. Donovan ordered Becker to surrender his weapon, badge, and radio immediately. The suspension was effective on the spot, swift and absolute. This wasn't just professional embarrassment. This was career suicide, witnessed by shoppers, security cameras, and anyone within earshot. Back at the station, Becker's nightmare deepened. Internal affairs descended like vultures, pulling footage from every angle of the grocery store. What they found was damning beyond redemption, clear evidence of racial profiling, abuse of authority, and dangerous overreach. The footage showed Becker approaching Julian with aggression, drawing his weapon without justification, and completely unraveling when he realized who he was dealing with. The disciplinary board's verdict was swift and unanimous. Termination, effective immediately. The department made it clear that if Becker didn't resign voluntarily, they were prepared to pursue criminal charges. His career, his reputation, his future, all destroyed in the span of a Saturday morning grocery run. Watching Becker sign his resignation with shaking hands, tears streaming down his face, Julian felt no satisfaction. This wasn't about revenge or personal vindication. It was about something much larger and more important. What had happened to him was just one moment in a systemic problem that countless people face every day without the protection of an FBI badge or a police chief's friendship. But this time, the system worked. The badge didn't protect the wrongdoer. Accountability caught up with prejudice. Justice wasn't just served, it was served publicly, swiftly, and completely. Julian walked out of that grocery store with more than his weekend shopping. He walked out with proof that speaking up, standing firm, and demanding accountability can still make a difference. Because when prejudice wears a badge, when bias carries a weapon, when assumptions can destroy lives, silence becomes complicity. And sometimes, just sometimes, the truth is powerful enough to set everything right.